The IMF just used words it almost never uses. A close call for a global recession. That phrase from the world's economic referee, the institution that monitors 190 countries, means we are closer to a synchronized global collapse than at any point since 2009. In the next 10 minutes, I am going to show you the IMF's 3 scenarios for 2026, which countries get hit hardest, and what the IMF's own chief economist said would need to happen to avoid the worst. Before we get into the numbers, let me tell you why the IMF's words matter more than most. The International Monetary Fund has 190 member countries. It has $1 trillion in lending capacity. It is the institution that bails out economies when they collapse. When the IMF speaks, central banks listen. On April 14, 2026, the IMF published its World Economic Outlook, titled Global Economy in the Shadow of War. It cut its global growth forecast. It warned of 3 possible futures for the world economy. And in the worst of those futures, it said, and I am quoting directly, a close call for a global recession. Growth has only fallen below 2% 4 times since 1980. In all 4 cases, it was a global crisis. Here is what the IMF says happens to specific countries, not my speculation, their forecast. The United States. Growth cut to 2.3%. Americans are already paying more at the pump. Tariffs could be reinstated as early as July. The Eurozone. Just 1.1% growth, already struggling from Russia's 2022 energy shock. A second energy shock could push several countries into contraction. China, 4.4% growth down from January. A weak property market, a shrinking workforce, and now a global demand slowdown. The Middle East and Central Asia. Growth crashes to 1.9%, a 2 percentage point downgrade. Iran, Qatar, Iraq, Kuwait, Bahrain, all projected to contract. Oil exporting economies being destroyed by the very crisis they are at the center of, emerging markets. The IMF's exact words, disproportionately affected by energy shocks and a tougher global funding environment. Less capacity to absorb shocks, greater exposure to disruptions, no buffers left. The IMF laid out 3 scenarios. Here they are, exactly as the IMF described them. Scenario 1. The reference case. A short-lived conflict. Oil prices average $82 a barrel. Global growth holds at 3.1%. Inflation at 4.4%. This is their most optimistic assumption, and even this is already a significant downgrade. Scenario 2. The adverse case. The conflict drags on. Oil averages around $100 a barrel, where it has been in recent weeks. Global growth falls to 2.5%. Inflation climbs to 5.4%. Iran, Qatar, Iraq, Kuwait, Bahrain, all contract. Scenario 3. The severe case. Supply disruptions extend into 2027. Inflation expectations become markedly less anchored. Financial conditions tighten sharply. Global growth collapses to 2%. Inflation tops 6%. The IMF's exact words. This would mean a close call for a global recession. The last time growth was this low was 2029, the aftermath of the financial crisis. Here is what makes this video different from the others. The IMF did not just warn of collapse, it also said what needs to happen to avoid it. And I want to read you the exact quote. IMF chief economist Pierre-Olivier Gourinchas said, With the right policies, including a swift cessation of hostilities and the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, the damage can remain limited. That is the IMF's exit condition, not lower tariffs, not rate cuts, not fiscal stimulus. The one thing that changes the trajectory, the Strait of Hormuz reopens. If you watched video 1, you know exactly why that strait matters so much. Every week it stays closed, the world moves from Scenario 1 toward Scenario 3. The IMF also warned against fuel subsidies. Governments will be tempted to cap prices and protect consumers, but the IMF says subsidies in one country cause fuel shortages in others that cannot match them. The right approach, time-bound targeted support for the most vulnerable, not broad energy handouts.